what I've done is, if it's okay, I've got a couple of slides just to give a bit of a background on Change Please, if that helps, and then absolutely we can have the Q&A after that. Just a bit on my side, I actually worked in alcohol for 20 years. It wasn't an addiction; it was just a really good, fun job. And in my last job, I actually worked for a brand called Chivas Regal. So I was the global brand director for Chivas. So for anyone who knows their whiskey, they're quite a big brand. And through that process, I actually met the founder of Change Please Coffee, who we're going to talk about today. In Chivas, I used to do a program around the world where we gave $1 million US to budding social enterprises around the world. So I got to meet some incredibly talented individuals and teams out there that made me kind of question, what am I doing in life, to be frank, and you know, and made me make the switch to one of our winners, which was Change Please Coffee. So you know, I won't take the credit for how it started, but I'll give you a bit of a background on it, and fundamentally, I think it'll be quite hopefully give you some inspiration and, more importantly, some food for thought in what you like to venture into. So I'm just going to share the screen. Unfortunately, this PDF means I need to just roll down. But anyway, we'll have a chat. So yeah, I'm here to talk about Change Please Coffee and Foundation. So we're basically a coffee brand, but there is a foundation that 100% of our profits go towards, and I'll explain how that model actually works. But we are what we say, which is a social enterprise where you know, where coffee expertise blends. There's actually nothing like Change Please really around the world to the scale that we've managed to get to. If you're living in the UK, you may have heard about Redemption Roasters, who work with ex-prisoners, but we have a different model to them. But our founder was incredibly inspired. Funnily enough, he actually, I'll just drop down, sorry. So this is Jamal Ezel, who's our founder. He's worth a bit of looking into, but as Jamal said here, that, you know, the whole idea of Change Please is every cup we brew and every beer we sell helps change the life of someone experiencing homelessness for the better. And it's absolutely true. He actually used to work as a diamond trader, and he went to a trip in Vietnam, and he visited a tea company that was run and created by women who were facing domestic violence and abuse. And they did the tea themselves, they packaged it themselves, and he was incredibly shifted his mindset about when he came back to the UK. And he was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, you know, and I think he basically walked out, he saw a homeless person at the airport, and they had a sign saying Change Please. That made him started to think. Obviously, coffee, as you guys know, is quite a massive industry. You could argue that there's a lot of sort of commercialization in coffee and a lot of big brands in coffee. And I think he saw a space here that coffee could do good. And in that process, you know, he started to work on that. And fundamentally, our mission, as you can guess, is tackling homelessness by selling great tasting coffee. That's the idea. And it's been interesting because I joined as a CMO 6 months ago. And my role really was to look at the brand globally as we expand across. And one of the things I think you'll learn from social enterprises, it's very easy, I think, to focus on that top part of that line and maybe miss the second part of the line. So depending on what I mean by that is, you've obviously got charities that are specifically focused on a cause, and that's completely fine because that's central core to the cause. But here, really, we're selling great tasting coffee to raise money to tackle homelessness. And sometimes it's very easy to get individuals who are passionate about homelessness and totally forget that you're still creating a brand, and you're creating a brand that needs to be successful. So when I came in, we were always talking about Change Please being, look at us, we're saving the homeless, and look at us, we're doing this many people. And I said, that's great, but that can't be the central core of your creative thought or your strategy. The thought is, we still need to sell great tasting coffee. And with that comes a lot of obstacles, because if you start pushing yourself as kind of a charity coffee brand, the consumer out there will generally think, oh, maybe they're skimping on the quality, and maybe they're cutting corners on other stuff, because that's just the mentality the consumer still has. And that's one of the things that we need to break down. So it's been interesting coming here and saying to everyone, yes, I agree. The first part of the line is important, but for me, the biggest important part was selling great tasting coffee, and how do we make a brand that still at the heart of it has this mission. But the more coffee we sell, the more people can help. And how do we do that? Well, actually, 100% of our profits go towards ending homelessness. And I know that sounds crazy, but that is exactly how the model works. So everything we raise after paying our employees in the business, and basic business costs, all profits go towards the cause. And the way it works is, we literally have we're basically training homeless people to become baristas. That's the main thing. We're an employment first model. So the core of the business, and it's different, because as you can see, the cost to take a trainee is about £2,544, and I'll explain what that process is. And we've taken through 100 trainees through our history in the last 5 years, and got them to be re-employed, and they give them their confidence back, and so forth. Some people asked us, well, for that amount of money, surely you can deliver sleeping bags and you can do that, but that's not solving the problem. You're just kind of helping to not give what they want, which is about giving them confidence back and giving them a place in society. It's funny when you talk to people. It definitely broke my understanding of homelessness, because your natural inclination is to think, oh, they're all drug addicts and they're all alcohol addicts. That's a means for them to get through their day. I had to sleep out with homeless people 2 weeks ago. I actually did it one night, and it's and I could not believe the pain of that, and I don't know how they do it day in, day out. And then you hear these horrible stories of people, and it shows you the darker side of sort of humanity, where a lot of these poor people, they get urinated on, they get set on fire. There's a few people that I've met. It's just unbelievable, the environment they're in, and all they want to do is they've just become invisible, and it's about giving their confidence back. And so how the training works is, unfortunately, if one of you guys came to me and said, oh, look, I've seen someone, is it okay if they can be part of the program? They have to be referred through a charity, because like a crisis or a shelter in the UK, for example, because you never know what sort of mental challenges that they've gone through, or you don't know if they're schizophrenic. So they need to be properly assessed before they can be referred to us. So it's just doing the due diligence and making sure they have the confidence. Then once we select them, we actually put them in the training program, which is for 3 months. And training program is paying them on a living wage, which is really important. So we're not undercutting their salary at all. We find them housing, and for the first 3 months, we actually pay for their housing. We get them a bank account, and you know how hard that can be sometimes. And so we managed to get them. Really important that we give them the therapy, so they'll get constant mental health support as they do it. And they just become these incredible baristas. And the idea is once they finish their 3 months, they will then be found a job. So either they will work for other Change Please shops that we might build, or it's absolutely fine if we get them a job at Starbucks or one of your local cafes in your area. It's about trying to get them ongoing jobs. And what we found is 6 months after they leave, we have an 82% success rate that they keep going, which is incredible. When you think about the hardships that they've gone through, to have 82%, we're very proud of that number, to be frank. And so, like I said, originally our packaging that we had for Change Please actually had our baristas on the package. So it was almost like, and it said, oh, this is Tom's blend or Lucy's blend, and they used to be homeless. And it was very much in sort of the traditional coffee category, colors of sort of brown, and it was very dour and very, it was all very serious. And I think what we discovered was, as I said to you, the consumer's perception of that can sometimes go great, but you don't want a consumer to have a negative feel towards a product, because it's just, you don't want them to go, I really feel sorry, or I feel, looking at this, because no matter what it is, the product needs to still do its job on its own. So what we did was we tried to bring energy and liven up by working with different street artists, because obviously the brand has come from the streets, and an issue from the streets. So what we do is we work with creatives from the streets. So street artists come and help us design packaging, and the idea is to also build other elements to it. And so when you look at this package, you don't really get straight away that it's a charity cause. What you do is you get a great coffee brand that tastes good, looks good, and then you discover that we're doing good. Because if you get the consumer to go, I feel sorry for homelessness, so I'm going to buy this coffee, tomorrow they'll go and find another cause and they'll support it. What you want is someone to go, I love Change Please as a coffee, as a brand, oh wow, and they're doing good. And I think that's why your Patagonias in the world, if you love chocolate, Tony's Chocolonely, which I love, Ben and Jerry's, you can name Innocent, there's all these brands. If you look at what they do, they build a great brand and they've got cause. They don't have the cause and make you feel sorry to buy them. It's really important to understand the differences. And obviously in the background of that, we do get asked a lot about, okay, well, where's the coffee coming from? So we work with various origin stories. So mostly from Africa and South America. And a lot of these farms are about supporting women of domestic abuse, landmine victims in Africa, their own father farmers. I'm kind of skimming through this for you for clarity's sake. But, and also, like we said, we also have a roastery in Peckham, which is one of our head offices, and the coffee is roasted by people who've been homeless. So, and then in terms of, obviously people then ask you about sustainability. So, there are elements there in terms of our packaging and so forth that we're very conscious of. So, the challenge for any social enterprise right now isn't just, you can't just tick one box, people are going to go, what good are you doing? Where's it coming from? Are you being sustainable? Like it's you really got to, you can't talk the talk. You really need to walk the walk. And I think that's something, we've been very conscious of. And I think now that we're getting bigger as a brand, I think that's where it's going to get, people are going to be absolutely into those details, particularly consumers. Consumers want transparency. And I'm sure you guys yourselves, with the brands that you engage with, transparency is super important for you, and it's completely valid. As I mentioned to you, street art. Sorry, just on the point before, I think I needed the energy and particularly the vibrancy, to be disruptive in the category. So I think one of the things you want to look at is, depending on the enterprise you want to do, is what are the category play at the moment. And to be frank, when I came from whiskey to coffee, I just looked at it going, everyone looks the same. Everyone seems to be talking about the same thing, about beans, heritage, provenance. They all talk about their baristas. And I kind of felt like there's a space here for a brand, particularly if you're starting from scratch. It's an open space for you to go in there. Like sometimes it's better not to go copying what you think are the traditional cues, because also understanding who's the new generation coming through into the category, and what are they looking for. And really the new generation of coffee drinker, I don't know if you've been outside, but obviously it's Christmas and the crazy flavors that coffee are doing. And you're just like, I feel like I'm having 2,000 calories in one cup in some of those drinks. But you can see the rituals and what people are engaging with is so much different to what we think is a classic coffee drinker. So I really wanted to bring something a bit different and bring some vibrancy to it so that it disrupts. So, and also, regardless, just because you're backing a serious cause doesn't mean you have to behave seriously in other elements, because sometimes this vibrancy allows to bring positivity, which is what you want people to feel like, a positive experience. And I'm doing good, not, like I said, I'm repeating myself, but not having a negative experience in that sense. And so the street art, there's a lot of visual slides here. I know it's after lunch, so people love to put some pictures in. But basically, we have different coffee carts that help us. We've been starting to get into festivals around the UK. And to be frank, we've been so lucky that one of the other great things about social enterprises is, with the big corporates, obviously, as you know, there's a lot on their agenda about trying to show corporate social responsibility. And I just did another presentation to some students where I was explaining to them the cynicism that big corporates get for looking like they're doing good, because consumers are like, well, it's got to be marketing, they're winning something out of it, and so forth. And one of the ways I sort of explained how big corporate could show a bit more authenticity is to probably work with people that need help, like a Change Please. So we're very lucky that these big festivals, or we've just been we had a call from Goldman Sachs in New York, who were like, we really want your coffee in ours, because we know the agenda there, like that in their annual report they want to say, look, we're doing good, and we're such an easy win for them. So yes, there's a bit of cynicism to that, but I think at the end of the day, we want to spread our message. And sometimes you'll probably hear these conversations of social enterprises going, well, we don't want the corporates. No, at this moment, you need a balance. Hopefully one day we will dominate, but at the moment we have to be realistic, because that money does help us to spread the message. It's just the reality of it. And it's just being careful about who you select, that the person you select that doesn't end up doing something completely against what you've been doing. So, it's key. So just to give you a bit of iteration on packaging and how it's spreading. And like I said, we have really interesting partners at the moment. So, we work on trains. We actually have done a big global deal with WeWork, which is really great for us to get our coffee out there. I think, ultimately, we're a brand that is about, these baristas are about, then themselves will be placed in these shops. So the more route to market we get, the more baristas we can get into work. So it's really important for us to capture more and more sites. That's kind of our big agenda at the moment, is making sure the route to market is sorted out. So again, Halifax Bank, then we have like small carts at different areas, but I guess you get the gist. We do have a couple of standalone stores. One is in Elephant Park in London, and and we've got some new spaces that are happening around. So, we're fast growing in the last part, and it's been quite incredible to see that growth. Because, to be honest, when I agreed for the job, Change Please had actually had got hit very hard with COVID in terms of because the we were selling in offices, we were on airlines, we were on planes. All of that went, and we actually had to let go of the staff count went from 75 to 15, and I'd already quit Shivers, and Jamal, the founder, was like, okay, we've gone down to 15. And I said, I just had faith we were going to bounce back, but I actually didn't know whether I was going to have a job. And so, that sort of, he really, we went out there and tried to find new opportunities to push it. And now we've gone back into the green, which is great. So it was a bit of a difficult period, but we're starting to see that growth happening. If you're ever in Borough Market for the Londoners, it's we're in there as well. So we're just very lucky at the moment to find different spaces and moving forward. So I'm just going to skip through, you kind of get an idea. This is our training academy in Peckham. So we have a cafe there, but this is where we have all our baristas come in to be trained. So and the great thing is it's quite an emotional experience in working for Change Please, because I was very lucky when I was at Shivers. I don't know if anyone's a big football fan, but I got to sign a deal with a global deal with Manchester United for 6 years. But then when I signed it, they then kind of went downhill. So maybe they were drinking too much whiskey at the time. So, but it's and it was incredible experiences there. But Change Please has changed my perception of what an experience really is. Like you'll get some baristas who've done their training, and they would have been, on the streets for say 10, 15 years. And then just to get a job interview is like the greatest thing in their lives. I mean, they're in tears, everyone's crying, and it's very emotional. And you just don't realize what it means to them to just even get an interview. We take it for granted sometimes what we have. And so it's taught me a lot about appreciating life as it is, but also like what the impact we can have if you do the right thing and build social enterprises. We've been lucky to get support from the Mayor of London. I think, and that's allowed us actually, we're going to start opening up in a lot of tube stations. So, we're expecting to roll out about 55 new stores in the UK by the end of next year. We're about to open another 40 stores in the US. We're going into France, we're going to Australia, and hopefully we'll be coming to one of your countries at some point. So it's, I think the idea is definitely starting to get momentum. And as I mentioned there, we've had a few things. I managed to sign a deal with Brentford Football Club, who are in the Premier League, which is great for us. Again, like I said, the United deal, when I did that, it took me 12 months of negotiation and X millions of pounds. The Brentford deal took 2 emails and 1 meeting because they really wanted to work with us, and they gave it to us for free. So, people are wanting to help social enterprises to build that momentum, which we're very lucky. Like I said, we do a lot of work with the NHS as well. So We have we're starting to get there in multiple hospitals. And like I said, we're going into different markets. And I said we're starting a global movement, but I think it's showing local impact. And what I mean by that is, even within London, if we open up a cafe, say in Peckham, we will try to find people battling homelessness from that area, because I think it's important that people see that local impact. And as you guys know, look, I think there are big causes out there in the world, which we know about climate. For example, there's a real challenge from sort of this generation about seeing immediate impact and seeing local impact. That's the big thing. I work with this incredible guy in Shivers who started his own streetwear brand in South Africa, a guy called Zaid Osman. And he has a brand called Great Africa. And honestly, it's just incredible to see him. But he works with sort of local communities to make this clothes and shoes, and he's really built something out of that. He's worth the look if you ever have a chance. So I think you get the gist. So it's always important to question and really nut out, why does your social enterprise exist? And I think it's not just about the practicality. Obviously, our mission is about tackling homelessness by selling great tasting coffee. But I think the why for us, is much, much greater, is that, we do change stigmas and perceptions. How many of us, probably, I know I have thought about it, where I've seen someone homeless and thinking they're never going to get a job again. But no, we're proving that that's not right. That is completely the opposite. And then you've got to put your money where your mouth is. So we have to create real change, and also show to the consumer that action can be easy. So, yes, we do 100% profits, but we're also showing to the consumer, hey, all you need to do is change your cup of coffee. I mean, we're not asking you for anything else. And I think that shows that sometimes your one change can work. So I think when you do look at the communication of a social enterprise, it's really important. So right now, what we're looking at is even getting to a granular detail where when you go to a store, where you can say, okay, that coffee that you're buying is going to have this impact. And so that the consumer can connect very quickly. So it might be like, I don't know, that this cup of coffee might get 10 minutes of training for a barista. And so you kind of go, oh, wow, okay, I know that impact. So it's really good to see the numbers and to actually use that as a marketing tool. And the third point is we fuel and enable change makers. And I'll explain that in the next part. So the idea is for our purpose is, and it's always good to have a purpose, particularly when you're briefing agencies and things like that. But ours is, like I said to you, when I came into Change Please, it almost felt like the company had this sort of messiah complex that, we're saving everyone. And I said to them, well, not really, because at the end of the day, the potential, the energy, the hard work is actually in that person who wants to become a barista. And all we're doing is we're fueling that. We're not, we're enabling that, because without that inside them, it's not, we can give them anything they want, they're going to fail. And I think that's really important. And so this idea that we fuel the change brewing in you is as important to them as I want to talk to the young corporate who wants to make it through the company. Like, that's a change in them. I want to talk to someone who's going to a gym and they've got to aim to change in them. I want to talk to young creatives who have a ceiling above them to get into agencies, and there's a change brewing them. So how do we fuel all this? So my ultimate aim in terms of marketing is to have a full ecosystem where, when we do package design, I don't want to go to a big agency. What I want to do is I want to find that young kid in Peckham who's probably sitting there with the most amazing creative talent, has no idea about ad school or creative school. I think we're all lucky, let's face it, that we've got the opportunity to study. And I want to discover that talent, give them a platform to come out. And I think that's the ecosystem we want to get to at some point, is not just about the people battling homelessness and getting them barista training, but every touch point we work on Change Please needs to encourage that at least to a certain percentage, and then find them ongoing employment from that. So, so ultimately for me, and I love this picture of our baristas, it's that warmth, it's that, I want to bring something to the brand, which is, it feels human. And, these are real people who've been on the streets and they're creating something. I don't want a classic shot of a barista holding a cup of coffee to camera going, drink this. Like, I just want to create something different. And I think the brand is around, fueling the courage, the hustle, the potential, the energy, and the change brewing in you. And like I said, Doesn't matter what your life situation is. We all want to make some change. You wouldn't be studying here at the moment unless there's some change in you, and we want to be part of that journey. And one of the things you'll also discover with consumers is that they don't mind when a brand talks about what they do in numbers, but ultimately they're going to ask, what can the brand do for me to make good? And that's a really key thing. We need to be an enabler, not like pushing down information. They don't care. Like, yes, they want to know you're doing good, but they don't want to get into details. And that's what really sort of drove me to change Please to Join, was the fact that all we're asking the consumer is to change a cup of coffee, and that has to be a powerful and simple action. And I think when you're thinking about your enterprises, is to kind of go, well, is there elements in there that can make it easier for the consumer? And just the last thing, we actually did a new project which got launched a couple of weeks ago. So we worked with Colgate and HSBC, and we were given double-decker buses that we've converted actually into. I'm just going to jump to the solutions. So all these images, these are in the bus. So we've got showers, toilets, we've got a hairdresser, a dental surgery, we've got counseling, everything are set up in 2 buses. And the reason why we're doing this is the fact that if you put homelessness in a spectrum of 1 to 10, your number 1 might be the person who's probably couch surfing. They don't have a home. They're staying with their friends throughout the year, trying to make ends meet. They're probably number 1. 8, 9, and 10, I think, are the people you really see in the streets, and they're just so deep and so in the hole that it's going to be virtually impossible to ever get them out. So we really thought we need to help that side of the people. And also, you never know, we might discover someone through this medium that we might go, you know what, you can still do something here, and hopefully give them the confidence to come back in, and we can either train them or help them in a way that would give them good. So these buses are going to be running 365 days a year, and we've had great press coverage from it. And if you ever see it, and we will roll them out internationally as we start moving. That's I know I talked a bit quick, but that's basically where we're at the moment.
That's amazing. Thank you very much indeed. That was fantastic. And I think it's given us a lot of food for thought. It's really interesting. There's already lots of hands up. So Varun, who I can't see, but I'm sure he's here somewhere.
I can see him, yeah.
Yes.
If you want to just take the floor and then bring in these others who've already got hands up. I see already 5 hands, 6 hands. So Varun, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for a great presentation. It was so inspiring to learn about the enterprises. It's actually it's great to see such great work. One thing that I just wanted to get more clarity on, and it's something I think you spoke early on in your presentation, was about the model itself. It seems so bewildering to know that an organization can donate all 100% of their profits after their costs to such great cause. And like for a layman, for a consumer, the first question that comes to mind is, if that is possible for an organization, why can't the big coffee brands do the same? So I just wanted to kind of understand from a model point of view, you have Change Please as an organization has expenses which others don't, from everything from training to setting up a training place, as well as not investing a major portion of the profits back into the business, but actually giving it out to homeless people. So how exactly does this part of the model work? And is it because we are charging a huge premium on our coffee?
There's a slight premium on the coffee for starters. So the reason for that is, and you still need to back it with a quality product and service. So we really try and make sure that's invested in, and that's seen. The other source of income that we've been, and that's where the foundation comes into play, is that because we also get government grants, we have individual donors, givers who might not necessarily be coffee drinkers or want to engage in the brand on that level, but want to support us in that way. So I think that's a big difference for us, in the sense that, and that takes a lot of work, by the way. So it's not like it's not just handouts, but it's a lot of, we have a whole team around fundraising and impact that have to drive that. So that allows us to do that. And then in terms of you know, it's funny when coming from Pernod Ricard, where I was before, the amount of, and I love the business, but it's quite interesting when you have a lot of money, how much you waste a lot of money. You know, and you sort of got these big budgets, and you think, all right, okay, like I won't actually analyze properly. Let's get 3 proper suppliers. It's like, oh, is that it? Okay, let's just do it. You know, and I'm guilty of that as well, right? So it really changes your mindset about being very, very, you know, not frugal, but I think, you know, being clever about how you work with people.
Perfect. Nadia, would you like to go ahead?
Hi, thank you for
Hi,
the
Nadia.
presentation. I was interested to know more about the pilot study. How many people did you cover, like from the homeless people, and how long was it, the pilot study itself? Another question is, like, I know this is like a very sensitive group you're dealing with. So what kind of criteria did you put to choose like who's gonna work with you and like gonna be like Krista? So
yeah. If I heard you right, so you're asking how many people in total have we put through the program? Is that what you said?
No. In the pilot study, how many were they?
Oh, in the pilot study.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think that would be a question for the founder. I think he just, to be honest with you, Jamal, I'll put it to you this way. He's the kind of visionary that we're already putting bids on 2 cruise ships. He wants to buy 2 cruise ships and convert them into accommodation for the homeless in San Francisco and the UK, right? So this is the type of person we're talking about. I don't think there was a pilot. I think he basically, when he kicked it off, once he got the first cart, we had a couple actually from Hungary that came over from Big Issue, which is a magazine that we sell around here. And they become the baristas. And honestly, he basically, there was no pilot, there was no testing. He just went for it.
Wow.
And so I don't think there was anything from there. Even these buses, no one's ever done these sort of buses. And we've kind of gone out there and gone, let's do it. And for him, it's let's do it, let's learn, and then go from there. So nothing's ever tested. And to your second question about, sorry, does that answer?
Yeah.
But the selection process is a really interesting one, you know, like, because you want to help everyone, right? Like, and we've got you know, we've got from you know, like 17, 18-year-olds onwards to 55, 60-year-olds that are coming through, a mixed, you know, mixed gender. There's no elements of demographic restrictions. It all comes to their mental capacity and their strength to be able to do this. This is where it gets tricky. But what that means is, if they don't get through the sort of that part of it with the counselor, we will then get them. We will get them therapy. So we will. It's not like you haven't made it, see you later. It's not a job interview. We will then go and help find money to support them. So there's no set criteria apart from the fact that are they willing to do it. And I think to your question before about the pilot, we have I don't want to name them because obviously their backgrounds are sensitive, but there was someone who worked at Change Please who came from Egypt. He was about to get married in Cairo. He was actually gay, and his wife realized, was going to tell his parents. He was basically they were basically going to kill him that night. He managed to get on a flight, came to London, had a horrible time here, found a partner, was abused, escaped from the house, went to a shelter, came to Change Please, and on his first day, like, he turned up to the venue, and he was in a fetal position behind the cart. He just couldn't do it. But with a bit of conversation, he went out there and did it. And now you see him 5 years later. He's like the most confident. Everyone loves him. He looks amazing. He's loving life. So, you know, sometimes you just don't know how it's going to work out, I think, in these circumstances.
Yeah, I love how you really care about like the all like social enterprise. They care about the mental health, because that was important. Yeah.
No,
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Nadia. Great question.
All right, next I see, I think Mui's hand is up.
Thank you, Ari. everything you talked about was I was
I love your
I'm
beanie, by the
super.
way. I love your beanie.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you get about budget imagine. I'm like, yeah, I'm wearing the beanie right now.
You just went and got that just between the slides.
Exactly, just for you. um,
Thank you.
so I was wondering, a lot of things you talk about that I resonate a lot. I was working with a shelter program here with homeless people a few years ago, and we worked on transforming, training the homeless people and to transfer the food wastage into the things that they could sell. So that was kind of similar idea, and I really like the idea, the part you mentioned, the importance of emphasizing the first line, but about your social cost, but also the second line about the value of your actual product to your customer. And that is for me, that is sometimes the most confusing part for you to actually do it in the real market. So could you give us a actual example, or even better, could you give us an example of a Whiteliner for Change Please, like how you pitch that emphasize both the first line and the second line of your product? And my second question is, I know you joined a little bit late, but now you have this comprehensive system of training and then set them into the labor market. But before that, what kind of MVP did Change Please have before this whole comprehensive system? And like when the Change Please first established and was able to attract the first like seed fundings, for example, what kind of the structure was there that was enough for the founders or for the VCs to give them the funding? Thanks.
Okay. I might struggle with the second question, to be honest, because I probably need to find that out for you because of I am a bit new to that. I'll try and answer a bit of the history background for that, so apologies. The first one, I think, around your hierarchy of messaging depends on who you're talking to. So I think at the end of the day, from a consumer point of view, what I've learned quickly, like I said, is making sure that they know that the good that they're doing with, and also the brand itself needs to talk to them in the right way. So what I mean by that is, the impact side is really important if we're going to win new customers, like new sort of opportunities in corporates, or we're going to in airlines, or we're going to, other potential partners. They don't really care about the fluffy stuff. They want to know like the impact story. They want to know, okay, like how many baristas have you really trained? What's the impact that we're going to have? So that impact side is actually really important for the new wins, right? And so I think for the consumer side, I think, yes, you need to sort of show them how they're enabling what they're doing. So that's, to my point, we're looking at right now, how does that one cup, what does that mean? We own another few brands, and one of them is Serious Soaps. And on the packaging, we say one soap means that we can remove 17 plastic bottles from the ocean, for example, right? So it's very clear without laboring, or it's still it's a feel-good fact. You know what I mean? Like and that's the risk, is you don't want to end up being a World Vision brand where you're seeing an ad with everything looks sad, and the consumer, it's just not, particularly from an FMCG product, it's just not going to work. So I think it's being very conscious of the feel good factor from a consumer point of view, and then using the rational facts to win your business. Is that kind of answering that part?
Yeah, definitely. That helps. I do have several other ones, but I'm going to give the floor to someone else and probably follow up with you afterwards.
But the second one for me is, one of the things I think we were lucky with was the fact that Jamal, the founder, had various businesses going on at the same time. So he owned sort of restaurants, he everything to try and tie in with things. And he owned he managed to work with partners to create another business called Conscious Capital, where they reinvest into social enterprises. So I think one of the things, which, to be brutally honest, probably lessened the pressure a little bit on Change Please, because for him, Change Please was a business that he was going to, even that was where he started with. I think he was looking to make sure it's diversification, right? Like, how do you spread the risk and make sure you back that? So I think from getting grants and so forth, there was I think he was always going to be an organic growth person, because from what I'm seeing, the way I'm working with him in the last 6 months, that's how we're building it. He's building towards a vision, but it is a very sort of an anomaly certainly in that sense. But what I'll do is I'll absolutely try and find you the answer, because there's only 2 people in the business that have worked since 2015. So they can the founder and head of impact, but I definitely will find you the answer for what you want.
Thank you very much. I will definitely follow up with you.
No problem.
Brenda, I have you next.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, Muyi has already asked, like the last question he asked was really my main focus. First of all, I want to start by saying it's really an awesome thing that ChangePeace is doing. I mean, getting like a complete and whole approach in solving the homeless person's problem, getting them homes, bank accounts and all. I just wanted to ask some of the questions that I'll extend on it about raising funds. I know that well, you raise some capital from producing the coffee, and that'll be enough to pay them. But like, how much more with funds, and like your experiences, maybe challenges, successes, and yeah, your negotiation skills at work, and how it's been so far.
Yeah, I think, and I think we're in that challenge moment now, Brenda. I think, and the reason why I say that is, as scale grows, people kind of start going, well, it seems like you're doing okay. And so you tend to then start struggling with getting the grants that maybe 5 years ago, people get excited by this new sort of seed of a thought, and they're like, they need the help, let's do it and try and grow it. Now, I know for a fact that when our 55 stores go out next year, we're going to struggle more and more. But it's almost like as one increases the profitability, the other will decrease, and it's trying to make sure that you manage that balance in between. So up until now, we've been very lucky to get grants, and a lot of people want to help us out. And I think this is where it's going to get interesting moving forward for us. And so I think, the negotiation part is really, it ultimately comes down to the commercials, because I think, and this goes back to my point about not building a brand purely on purpose, because every brand in 2 years is going to have a purpose. Every brand that Starbucks will come in and suddenly they've got some purpose that they've discovered, which has been retrofitted. So you can't rely on purpose, which is why I'm very conscious that you need to build the brand, because and bring that loyalty and customer base with you, because that's what's going to drive us at the end. So it's really important to make sure that's nutted out. And then I think, it's more about, in terms of raising funds, and the negotiation is really having tangible solutions. So the buses is almost the best sort of evolution, as you might say, because before that, we had the carts and we were building the retail space and trying to build the coffee that way. But now we're trying to find other ways, because we want to also try and help as many people as possible, and not the stores alone aren't going to be able to do that. So we have to always be creatively thinking, right, cruise ships, like that's going to help. Like, there's hotels that unfortunately went bankrupt in London. So we're looking to buy those hotels out and convert them into accommodation. So those are going to people with tangible options, and being refreshing in your thinking process will always help to sort of build getting the grants and the donations. So that's really key. And I think definitely the impact, like showing that impact is real and it's happening, is really great. When we were trying to find sponsors for the buses, it's so hard because you're kind of going, it's hard in a way, in the sense that people are going, yeah, I get it on paper, but I need to see it. The moment those buses went out, we had calls from every brand in the world going, we want to sponsor a bus. So sometimes you need to, unfortunately, invest in the tangible to show them. People need to see things. You can talk to them as much as you want, as like you need to show that. So there's probably different ways in, if that helps.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. Actually, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I think at some stage the organization will have to pivot, because from a model point of view, the number of homeless people in a city would far exceed the number of baristas, demand for baristas in a city. So you'll have to have multiple avenues.
Yeah, exactly. But like, yeah, so, and even within Change Please, like, so 2 of our baristas, as of last week, one's joined the IT team and one's joined finance.
Yeah.
There's a person on the streets 10 years ago. That for me, that was like, that's even bigger than what we've done, to see them sitting there So, you know, the idea is like we have more and more staff come into the system, whether it's running the buses, whether it's doing more social work. We have trainers who do the trainees who used to be homeless. So that's the dream, isn't it? Like to not just train baristas, but to get them on every level.
Perfect. Sarah, I have you next.
Hello, hi. Thank you for that presentation. So I have two questions. The first one is, presumably there's thousands of coffee shops around us, right? So how do you enter such a saturated market? Because for me, as someone that wants to think about potential enterprise ideas, everywhere I look, it seems like someone has done one version or the other of it. So I feel like there's a mental block to me thinking about these ideas or going deep into them. So how do you enter a saturated space? My second question, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but at the end of the day, homelessness is a policy failure of the government. And people say that charities at best can just cover up the wounds instead of actually dealing with these deeper issues. So one would say that the mayor of London endorsing these charities is simply a way of them brushing their hands off from actually making policy changes that the government has to do. So what do you say to that? How do you reconcile that with your charity? Yeah.
Great questions. So the first one is, I think we were probably lucky in the UK in the sense that there hasn't been a coffee brand that's been around social impact as a starting point. However, in saying that, I think we'll see more and more of that happening. And I think it to me, that's why I kept going back to the consumer in terms of what's the experience that we're providing. And so right now, you know, there's a couple of elements that you need to look at. One is what's your kind of look and feel, but what is it when we start getting to the high streets? What is the experience that we're providing for someone? And you know, the difference is that if we're all about, and this is where the Fuel the Change Brewing in You came into my mind, was we know the world is difficult at the moment. And I think, you know, this idea of the new generation coming through, which we kind of call the hustle generation, have had to fight their own space, which is, you know, you've got COVID, you've got Brexit, you've got all these things happening, and people are really finding their own path. And that's quite an inspirational piece for those guys and girls. And we have the most incredible stories of people coming from, you know, the sort of the most dire of circumstances to make it work. So the storytelling is really important for us, because the stories we want to tell is, yes, around coffee, but being sort of that space that's about entrepreneurialism. You know, it's about hustling, it's about hard work, it's about that experience. So experience fundamentally is going to be key for us in the high street store, because when I go to a Starbucks or I go to a particularly like a Redemption, for example, I feel like I'm going to a library. So there are people on laptops. You know, you've kind of got to be quiet, even if you're with friends. You're not sure whether you're talking too loud, you're disturbing people. Where I want a hub where you go in there, you talk loud, you ideate, you create. You know, it's much more. So there are spaces in our industry that we can play. That's just one example, right? Sorry, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it's trying to understand on every holistic level, what is it that we can provide? So, you know, what can we do? So, for example, I was looking at rituals and thinking, you know, it's like Guinness owning St. Pat's Day, or, you know, KFC in Japan owning Christmas. I was thinking, change, please, at the first day on New Year's Day, when you're doing resolutions and you're wanting to make, okay, New Year, I'm going to make a change. I'm thinking we should own that day. Like, you should be getting a change, please coffee, because, you know, just a simple idea, right? So just thinking ways to I think owning experience, owning rituals, that's still, you know, it's simple things. You don't have to overcomplicate it, but that can change it. And then, yeah, when you go into that high street store, what's the experience? And then how do you drive people to that high street store? Will be through your storytelling and being different. I don't want to see every story about how great our coffee is. I want to celebrate other change makers. I want to celebrate other, you know, sort of icons of the hustle generation. And you get a sense of, yeah, I want that energy. I'm going to change, please. Not because I'm going to get told off because I'm too loud. So there's sort of the parts of it. Then your second point is a really interesting one. Look, the problem is so severe. And even when we did the buses, a lot of the journalists were asking the same question, right? They're like, you know, why is it taking a brand, a coffee brand, to have to provide solutions? And we're just in this horrible sort of balance between either someone does something or someone doesn't do anything. But I think for us, we're probably not putting a Band-Aid technically in the sense that we do full life intervention. So I think if we'd gone out there and gave sleeping bags for everyone and just went, oh yeah, we've done our job. So I think inherently in our brand, there's something quite important in the fact that it's a longer process, but we're showing there's a way to do it. Are we going to end homelessness completely? Of course not. We have to all be somewhere, but the movement has to start somewhere, right? So we need to start that movement. We need to roll this brand out globally, and hopefully we inspire other people at other levels to do that. And I think you're right. We do look at it day in, day out, going, the government surely can give us help in that stuff. And the irony of Sadiq Khan was he came in and he gave us money like not long, like 5 years ago, but he said, without that money, these buses wouldn't have happened, right? And we're sitting there behind the camera going, well, that's not quite true. But the thing is, he also brought so much media to that launch, right? I honestly think without Sadiq Khan being there, we wouldn't have had anywhere near the exposure we would have got. So we have to use that platform. Like it's that balance. We either lose, if we're going to be stringent about everything at the moment, that's the catch. So it's trying to go, okay, this is helping us in a way. And I think this is ultimately going to be the challenge for all social enterprises. And it was a big topic at the awards that we were at, that, and you've got sort of, the bank sitting there, and you've got PwC, and you've got all these people sitting there. And this guy came on and absolutely said, social enterprises need to be the future. We need to drive the agenda in policy making. We need to drive all those elements. But the journey's only just begun. And it's not like we're going to solve it tomorrow. But I think we're seeing more and more social impact brands coming in. And surely at some point that momentum has to help right now. But we're in the growing pains, unfortunately. I wish I could give you more of a positive answer, but it's we've got to start somewhere.
Thank you.
Perfect. Ankita, you want to go next?
Hi, thank you so much. This was really inspiring, and all of us did look at the video, and as Alexander said, it genuinely brought tears to my eyes. It was so incredible. And I think my question, I'm going to ask you to like extrapolate beyond, say, beyond your enterprise, and talk about how we can use the principles and other causes that all of us work in, right? Like, for example, most of us either come from a policy space, or we come from working in a very hardcore developmental NGO kind of space, which is not for profits. And I'll say most of us, I'm sure some of us come from a for-profit space. What I have often struggled, and it could be because of my limited understanding, is there has been this market-like buzz around enterprising every social challenge that we come across, right? And that's like a huge criticism, say, social enterprises in India also face, that some of the challenges that people face are extremely deep behavioral causes and deep behavioral challenges. For example, say domestic abuse, right? Or something like that. So, and there's this huge air in the market that, like, we need to create like sustainable enterprises which are profitable, etc. And I do see like a reason why, because they're sustainable, because there is a product involved, there's something like that you're doing that will last beyond just charity. But do you think the idea of creating a sustainable enterprise could literally be applied to most development challenges that people face in different countries? And if yes, is there a place where we can start from? For example, you come from best of both worlds. You've seen the corporate world, you've seen hardcore business world, and you've seen the enterprise world. So for all of us here, like some of us might go back work in environment and water and education and gender. What are the principles that we can start from, where we can start looking at problems as enterprises? Can we stop? Is there a way we can pivot the way that we think? Is there a place where we can start? And if yes, how can we shift that lens? And the second challenge that I have is, do you think that's like, it's a moral question. Do you think that is the way to move forward? Given that so many challenges are deep behavioral challenges, even say homelessness, there is a policy failures, but there's a behavioral failure as well. So where yeah. So
no. I think I get the crux of your question, and it's coming, and like you said, because I've been from both worlds, I do understand the power of brand, brands have voice, brands have following, particularly with what's happened with social. You know, like there's a platform that brands have. They're like the new celebrities, really. They're the you know, the new Hollywood stars of the olden days. And so when these platforms exist, why not utilize them to do good is probably where I've kind of looked at from both sides, and making sure that we fit in that. What I don't think is, to your part of your question is, I think you still need to work with a cause that is important to your heart, because at the end of the day, like, you know, you need to be passionate and close to that cause, and only then, with the cause being at the central point of your thought, will you then create something that helps to do that. I think if you go like, what's going to be viable, and hopefully I haven't misread your question, but I'd rather not go, oh, I think there's this cause that we could do this product, and then I'm just going to go for that cause. I think it's more about the fact that I think there's an opportunity in every cause, and I think that's the key thing. Like, it has to be at the heart of it, because from 200 years now, you don't want people need to know Change Please started because homelessness was that's what created that, you know, not Change Please thought, okay, we've got a coffee, what should we do? Oh yeah, we could try this with homelessness, and let's go and do that, because that will come across so quickly.
Yeah.
Transparency in this world, you will get caught out within 2 seconds, and the moment one person has a problem, it's spread, it's done. So I'm 100% convinced that no one will ever be able to question us as to why we began. So I think you still need to think about the cause and what's important to you, and then think of the ways in, because, you know, I did some work, because I'm Sri Lankan by background. I did some work during the tsunami, right? And I remember seeing some of the bigger so-called NGOs coming in, staying at the Hilton in Colombo, and, you know, just because they're a charity enterprise, going, I'm thinking, where's half this money going? And then you've got sort of, you know, these other causes that you know, people, smaller causes that are really in there making an effort and putting it in forward. So the irony is, like, that's the key thing, is making sure that it doesn't matter if you find a social enterprise or a charity or what have you, is making sure that you come from a moment of truth, and that will come through, because the staff that you employ, you know, the support that you get from other people, all those things will come together to make something much more tangible and transparent and powerful. I don't know if this is a very theoretical answer. I don't know if it's helping you.
No, I get that. Yeah.
And this is what drove me to Change Please. And then I think, you know, and I think this idea, which is super important, if you want to do good, it needs to make the consumer feel an easy way in. You know, that's the big thing I've learned, is that, you know, and you can read as many literature on it, but they all say that the consumer is always asking, what is this brand or enterprise doing for me to do good? That's the big clincher. How does, you know, so here in this case is buy a cup of coffee and I know I'm doing good. So we're quite lucky in that way. So look, it's a really, and this idea of business and profit. So Shiva's Venture, the competition I did, one of the criteria is the financial viability of the idea. Like, you couldn't win the competition unless you showed the commercial side of it, because so many people have great ideas, but the unfortunate thing is, without going, what's your team set up going to be? Like, what's your expansion plan? Like, what's your commercials? You know, they're all important, because that's, you know, the partners that you're going to work with and the people you're going to work with are going to question all that, and that's what's going to give them confidence at the moment. I think social enterprise in this weird world at the moment, where it's a gray area between social enterprises and the big corporates, and we need, like I said, we need the big corporates to help push it. So business and profit profit and purpose is absolutely vital for success. It just is. It's just, that's the way the world is right now. And I think, you know, with the start, like I said to you, when I went into Change Please, it really didn't go down well when I originally said, you know, we can't just keep talking about the problem. Like, we need to find other ways that will make money. So
did you have to pivot in COVID because a lot of restrictions, etc.? Did you have to, because I know a lot of enterprises had to pivot. Did you have to pivot during the last year and a half of the lockdown?
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, and again, I think it was more of a route to market piece, which was around which was around e-commerce and making sure that, and home consumption, as you know, increased a lot, and particularly in coffee. So, trying to build that part was going to be important. So, there was, it was a tough period, but thankfully we bounced back, and we were very lucky to have some of our partners still pay our invoices, even though we weren't selling coffee through them. So, that really helped us. So like David Lloyd Jim's, they still paid our invoices, even though nothing was open. So yeah, we were great. But it's because the cause is, like you said, you can see people who work in Change Please believe in the cause because it comes from a truth.
Thanks a lot.
We've got a question from Irina, and then if there's and then we'll be pretty much wrapping up.
I will, thank you. I will try also to wrap up by bringing you back to where you started from, which is the marketing and branding. And I wish I heard this talk a few years ago, because I run a social enterprise with co-founders from the scholarship. We do sustainable laundry detergent from soap nuts harvested by women in India. And as we do that, we already have 200 women whom we are supporting. So we're doubling their income. And we had exactly similar brand journey from literally a brown paper bag to somewhere that puts those women and vulnerable populations front and center, to finally reaching a stage where we have a product which is bright, which is exciting, doesn't talk about social purpose on the front, and just shows the consumer kind of profit first, and then you can learn about the social purpose later. So basically kind of similar brand journey. So I really appreciated your talk from that perspective. And the question is, if you can say, do you feel that you found the perfect combination right now in terms of your branding, or what is the future for the brand? Like, are you hoping to take it somewhere different again, or is this your perfect formula for success?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think branding as a whole is evolving all the time, right? So I think it really comes down to, the thing is, it's about always looking out. And one of the things I learned from my previous job at Pernod Ricard, where I worked with brands like Absolute and Jameson and all these other people, is being on top of what's happening in culture and what's happening out there in the world. And it's making sure that the values, it's not about going, oh, what's the next big trend, let's go for it, or what's that, is making sure that the values you have speaks to that particular generation, for example. So I think for me, like Change Please right now, which is around this idea that, we did come from the streets, and it's been hard work, and it's all about the hustle, and it's all about, that elements of it are absolutely the values that the generation is going through right now. It's all, I read an article about Kim Kardashian, and I know you like, what the hell is he talking about Kim Kardashian for? But in the article, she keeps talking about hard work. She goes, oh, this was all hard work. And whether it was true or not, it shows you what's actually the key theme she's trying to drive. And that's so representative of what our brand is. And then it's about being on top of culture, moving forward and seeing what will happen when it evolves, and how do our values match to that? So it's really important that we do values-based marketing, as opposed to, one of my favorite brands, and you're probably going to all laugh, is Corona beer. Because Corona, whether you're 16, that's an illegal drinking age, or 60, you drink Corona because it's all about fun. It's about escapism. They're always like where you'd rather be. And that was like in the 80s. And you look at it now, it's still the same idea, where in the 80s, it was like, you do your 9-to-5 job, you come home, open the fridge, there's my escapism. Now it's like, I need to get out of my whole bloody life here and go to Mexico, because that's our escapism, right? So the values are the same, but it's how you're representing it for a generation that needs it. So that will be my big thing about making sure we're on top of that, and whether Change Please is relevant.
Thank you so much.
Just a point on, I think it was Ankita's question about what, I just want to make sure that there's so many causes, there's no sexy cause, right? There's no sexy cause. So whatever cause you believe in, it needs help. And that's what makes it interesting. But you just need to put it from a consumer lens, which with too much inward sometimes that we think about, you know, what we think is right, but you have to understand the consumer, and you can win them over with any cause as long as you make it easy for them and so forth. So there's nothing there that should be untouched. Everything is super important. And when I did the venture, I've worked with hundreds of social impact businesses, covering from environment to, you know, women's sanitary challenges in third world countries, to everything. Everything needs help, and everything can be done. So don't let anything restrict you from that. There's no sexy cause. It doesn't sound, it sounds weird.
I think that's what Sarah was asking a bit too. I just want to thank you very much. I think it's been really fascinating listening to you. We started this business enterprise a few years ago, and both Ben, Barnett, who's here, and who managed to get you guys to come today. And I've discussed many times that it's very difficult for some of you to imagine how it's possible to come up with an enterprise that includes money and making money, and could even look good, because maybe that's not really allowed. And what you've done this afternoon is to show us that that is possible. And I think it's an incredibly helpful lesson to us. As you say, profit and purpose is vital for success. It is about hard work. I think, again, it's hard for many of our students because we can all begin on things and then think, help, that's not going to go anywhere. So that was fun. And what I think, again, you've shown us that if we have to try several things and know that not everything's going to work. And I think that what you've also shown is that you can have each of you, because you're young, will actually be touching exactly the generation that might buy the coffee or buy the clothes or buy the soap or whatever it is. And I think sometimes, again, there's a sense that unless you go for something terribly grown up and old-fashioned, it might not work. And I think one of the things you've shown us is it can be something very simple product that could be an everyday product for everybody. And I think, given where a lot of our students come from, this could be a really interesting way forward, is to think sort of that way a little bit. And I think all of that's incredibly helpful. So I hope you will stay in touch with us and we can learn more. And I promise we'll all go and buy coffee from you. Promise.
We have in the office, yeah.
We have in the office already, yes. So thank you very, very much indeed. Ben, do you want to just add anything?
Ari, yes, thank you very much for coming in. It really has been an inspirational talk, so thank you. It's Change Please has long been a real sort of dream or ambition of mine to hear you guys talk, so thank you very much. I think we're fortunate in terms of the wider piece also to have another social entrepreneur later, Cecilia from Babies with Love, joining, and I think it really is. And I think at some point we'll have the founder of Birdsong joining us also. And the reason I mention that is it is those simple everyday things. Tens of billions of pounds every year are spent on coffee or on fashion or on baby clothes. And actually it's trying to make sure that you can create a real business, an enterprise around it, but where either the people you employ, as with Change Please, with Birdsong, where they're making fashion with sort of women's cooperatives in London, or the proceeds of your business, as with Change Please, or with Cecilia with her profits from Babies with Love, are going to a good cause. And I think that's the exciting thing. You're creating a real business, something that really has tangible benefit to the consumer, but that also has a social purpose. So, Ari, that was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Honestly, thank you so much for the opportunity, and that looks like you've got a great set of bright minds, and looking forward to seeing what comes out of it. But anytime anyone wants to talk to me, obviously I can share my email address, and happy to help at any opportunity. So thank you again. Really great audience. Thank you so much.